Hello, this is Rick Pina. I want to welcome you to another 5-minute fix. We've been teaching on the love of God, learning to develop in God's love, learning what God's love is for several weeks now. We've taught on 4 out of the 20 characteristics of God's love found in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And this morning, let's get into number 5. So 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 4 says, "Love endures long and is patient and kind. Love is never envious nor boils over with jealousy. And it's not boastful or vainglorious." It's not boastful or vainglorious. So for me to tell you what God's love is, this week I have to tell you what God's love is not. And it's not boastful or vainglorious. What does that mean, Rick? Well, to be boastful is to speak of oneself with excessive pride. Or in other words, to have an excessively high opinion of yourself. While it's true that as a believer you shouldn't have low self-esteem, it's also true that as a believer you should not have an excessively high opinion of yourself. You got to realize that you are who you are by the grace of God, and we'll talk about that this week. And then vainglory is unwarranted pride in one's accomplishments or qualities. Unwarranted pride. It's not that you are less of a person by saying that, it wasn't me. It's okay to acknowledge the giftings and the grace that God has placed on your life, and it's okay to acknowledge the things that God has blessed you to do and to accomplish and to acknowledge your accomplishments. But there are some people that allow themselves to get to the point where it's unwarranted pride, where they think too highly of themselves than they ought to think. Look, there is a thin line between confidence and arrogance, and many of us, myself included, cross that line from time to time. There are times where we have to catch ourselves and humble ourselves before the mighty hand of God and allow Him to exalt us in due season. The quickest way up in God is down, and the quickest way down in God is up, meaning that when you humble yourself before God, then He'll open doors for you that no man can close. He will exalt you and promote you. He will bring you before great men. But if you try to do it all yourself and you try to live your life on your own accomplishments, on your own ability, on human ability alone, then you're sitting on the throne in your life. Let me say it this way. There's 2 positions that you need to fill every day: the cross and the throne. And if Jesus is still on the cross in your life, and that means that He hasn't resurrected, then you're the one that's on the throne, and you're in charge, and you run your own life, and you're your own man, and you think that you're a self-made man or a self-made woman, and you're in charge of you. And if that's the way you're living, then I have to tell you that that's not the way God wants you to live. Now, if you're on the cross and you're crucifying yourself and you're dying to self daily, then that means that Jesus is on the throne. He's the Lord of your life, and you're submitted to Him, and you go where He wants you to go. You do what He wants you to do. He is Lord. Now watch this. Either He is Lord of all, or He is not Lord at all. Let me give you an example of how pride could get you messed up. Satan is a good example of this. Satan said, this is what he said in Isaiah. Isaiah talks about what Satan said. Satan said, "I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of the assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." And you know what happened? You know how that worked out for him. He got kicked out of heaven. Why? With that "I will" attitude, with the attitude that is about me. I will. I'm boasting. If you're an I man or I woman, if you have too much I in your conversation, people are going to acknowledge that you're just full of pride. In common terms, that would be that you're just full of yourself. You have to acknowledge, especially as a believer, that there's someone that's greater than you, that is using you, that is gracing you, that is blessing you. Pride is the silent killer in the church. You could preach a great message, but if you did it in pride, then God could bless people and you not get blessed. You could sing a great song, but if you did it in pride, then people could be blessed through the song and you not get blessed because you did it in pride. People may not be able to identify pride, but God does, because God searches the heart. It's a silent killer because God is examining you while you're doing things, and if you're doing it in pride, then you might as well just not do it at all. As a believer, you must submit yourself to God and realize that He has graced you to do everything that He's graced you to do. Pride is one of Satan's big 3. John documented, he said, here are Satan's big three: the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. You don't want to operate in any of those three. And so let's just transition here to closing. As you're walking in the love of God, you got to remember, realize that God's love is his greatest requirement of us. His greatest expectation is that we operate in his love. His greatest expectation of us is that we develop in his love on a daily basis so that people can see him through us and not just see us through us. So in closing, three things. Number one, remember that while it's not God's will for you to have a low self-esteem, it's also not God's will for you to have an excessively high opinion of yourself either. You should not think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. Number two, you are not a self-made man. You are not a self-made woman. Maybe you say, well, Rick, you don't understand. I worked hard. I worked my butt off. I went to school. I did this. I got a graduate degree. I'm working on my PhD. Yeah, but you even did that by the grace of God. Oh, Rick, you don't understand. I lost 32 pounds in the last year. I've been working on this. I'm going on this marathon. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Yeah, I got it. But even that, you did it by the grace of God. No, but Rick, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I was broke and I grew up on welfare and I'm a millionaire and I'm doing this. Yeah, I got it. But even that is by the grace of God. So you got to remember, realize that God has graced you to do whatever it is that you're doing. So give him the glory. And that's number three. And as we close, when the glory comes, remember to deflect it back to God. Here's the thing. We get the benefits, but he gets the glory. We get the benefits of walking in the blessing, but remember, he gets the glory. The glory is reserved for God. Never take God's glory. If you take God's glory, you're going to find yourself in a bad situation real fast. So as a believer, you must remember to always, when the glory comes, deflect that glory back to God. Acknowledge the God that has blessed you to do whatever it is that you're doing and continue to walk in the blessing, but you have to do it in love. This was number 5. Come back next week for number 6. I'm Rick Pena. This has been your 5-Minute Fix. God bless you.